Welcome back to Reviews and Rankings with Robbie Sobel. Today, we're going to talk about the 2025 film, Weapons. Weapons is a 2025 film written and directed by Zach Cregger, only 3 years after the release of his first film, Barbarian. Julianne Garner and Josh Brolin star in a film that tells the story of 17 children who go missing in the middle of the night. The link that ties them all together? They all share the same elementary school teacher. As the town comes together to unravel the mystery, pointing fingers at who can be behind the disappearance of the children, chaos ensues and horror is soon to come for them. Alright guys, I was able to check out Weapons just 2 days ago. Now usually I go to the theater, I watch the movie, and I come right home and film the review. But Weapons hit a nerve with me to the point where I wanted to give it a day or two to let it really sink in, let my thoughts marinate, and then bring them and deliver them to you. Now, when I heard that Zach Cregger was coming out with a new horror film, I was excited about it. I really liked Barbarian. I didn't love it, but I thought it was effective and a well-made movie. And going into this, I was crossing my fingers that Zach Cregger would improve on this next effort. After checking out this 2-hour film, I have to say, Zach Cregger fixed all of the issues that I had with a film like Barbarian and improved on them big time with Weapons. Now, I get to the theater fairly often. I try to see a new release every single week. And as we sit here in the middle of August, I have to say that Weapons is the top film of the year, in my opinion. Now, if you've seen the trailer, you know that this tells a story of a group of elementary school students who one night in the middle of the night just leave their house and they disappear. Because they all have the same elementary school teacher, all of the townsfolk and the parents blame her for their disappearance. Now, Julianne Garner plays the teacher, Mrs. Gandy, and she does so in such an effective way. She comes across as very sympathetic. But, and here's the very important part, while she does come across as sympathetic, she's not without her faults. We see that she has issues and she's far from a perfect person. This presentation of the character delivers us and resonates in a way where it's very realistic. You can sympathize more with her because you realize that she has faults just like everybody else. And this is a theme that continues on with the other main characters in the movie. Josh Brolin plays the father of one of the missing kids, and while his heart is in the right place, he often acts in a way that's irrational and a bit too aggressive. As a parent myself, I could see myself acting that way if one of my children just went missing in the middle of the night and I thought that I knew who might be behind the disappearance. Now, in saying that, once again, that gives us another layer of a kind of a realistic character in a way. We start to see this unravel and be presented to us in many of the other characters, which fleshes out the story, brings the characters up to a realistic surface level. As an audience member, I can relate to them more, which brings me deeper into the story. One of the best parts about Weapons is the narrative structure and the writing by Zach Cregger. Typical films follow a linear storyline. We get a beginning, a middle, an end, or a 3-act structure. But that's not what happens in Weapons. We get an idea of what the story is going to be, and then we are delivered character chapters. We see a scene or a group of scenes together from one character's point of view, and then we get to see it again, but from another character's point of view. Now, that might come across as a bit repetitive, but it's not. Seeing things from different points of view, just like in real life, can tell a completely different story and a much broader and bigger story. So you think that you know what's going on, and then you get to see it from another character's point of view and eyes, and then you sit there and go, okay, now I see what's going on. So we're starting to connect the dots. This follows along through the entire film. It's almost like if there's a big picture that's out there, and you only get to see one little portion of it. And as we move along, we get to see pieces of that picture being delivered and uncovered. It's a very interesting way to watch a movie, and it's one that I like to see more in the future, as long as it's handled by a writer and director who knows exactly what he's doing and is able to convey his vision onto screen. Now, casting is a major deal for any film, and with Weapons, they really hit the nail on the head. As I mentioned earlier, Julia Garner was absolutely stellar in her role, garnering enough sympathy for us to cheer for her the entire way through. Josh Brolin playing Archer, the father of one of the missing children, was so sympathetic and he was so realistic, even when he would go overboard in his reactions. Now, there were reports that Pedro Pascal was ready to be brought on board in that role, but due to scheduling conflicts, he had to drop out. Nothing against Pedro Pascal, he's a solid actor, but Josh Brolin really delivered here. He hammered it home, and I'm happy that things happened the way they did, and we're able to get the cast to come together and create the chemistry that we saw on screen. Now, I want to give a big shout out to Carrie Christopher. He plays the character of Alex Lilly, and he's the only kid that we really get to meet and dive deep into and see the world from his point of view. Child actors can be a bit difficult, especially if you put them as a focal point of your film. Putting an actor in there, especially a young kid who can't deliver a performance in a film that's serious like this, can make or break your movie. And thankfully, Carrie Christopher hits it out of the park. Big thumbs up to this kid, an awesome pick by Zach Cregers for entrusting a young kid with such an important role in his film. Now, being a horror film, this is going to have scares, it's going to have blood, it's going to have gore. But did it do it too much? Was it too forced? And I'm happy to say, no, no, no. There were a few jump scares in this movie, but they were done effectively, and they weren't done in a cliche fashion. So many times you go to a movie and you can almost telegraph and predict exactly when these jump scares are going to happen. It's almost like there's a beat for beat guide on how to make just a standard horror movie to give spooks and scares. But with weapons, they subvert your expectations at times, and when they do the jump scares, you don't see them coming, and it's really impactful. As far as the blood and the guts go, there is good blood, there is good special effects, but it's not overwhelming. Zach Cregger knew exactly when to use it and when to maximize it and when to pull back. That's an effective filmmaker who's learning his craft. And I hope that we continue to see more evolution and more development from Zach Cregger because he's on a trajectory where he's going to be one of the best in the game if he continues to pump out films like Weapons. Now, in a horror film, there's going to be uncomfortable moments. Sometimes it's going to feel a little bit too uncomfortable, and you need some levity there to kind of break down those feelings. Give us a time to kind of settle. Some movies don't know when to do that, and some, when they try, they fail. But the humor that's injected into Weapons is done so organically and naturally. Just like in your everyday life, there could be an uncomfortable moment or a serious moment, and someone makes a joke, they might make a comment, or something silly just happens where you can breathe a little and laugh and move on. That's what happens in Weapons. These moments that happen that are a little bit silly and funny are never overdone and they feel natural. This is a film that takes itself serious, but knows when to take the foot off the gas just slightly so we can breathe. Now, this is usually the part where I tell you my dislikes of a film, or at least the aspects where I think could have been improved. Now, I'm not trying to say that Weapons is a perfect movie. Very few are. But even after having 2 days to think about it, there's really nothing I would change. The film had such naturally smooth pacing, the characters were relatable in their positive and their negatives, and the acting was stellar. The blood and the guts was used to perfection, and there was enough humor in there to lighten the mood, but not overdo it where it kills the vibe of the story. Now, my biggest issue with Barbarian, his previous film, was that after a very solid first and second act, that third act kind of went off the rails a bit and seemed a bit too much, and it took me out of the story. But in Weapons, he really stuck the landing. The first act, the second act, and the third act that were comprised of all these mini character stories came together so well. And by the time the movie ended, I felt like I was watching a gymnast who was doing a floor routine and landed the vault perfectly. Now, I know I've spoken highly about Weapons, and it looks like I'm not the only one. Over on Rotten Tomatoes, for the critics score, they have a 96% on the tomato meter. And over on the popcorn meter with audiences, that score currently sits at 89%, making it one of the highest rated horror films of the year. And over on the financial end of things, Weapons grossed over $18 million in the United States on its opening day and nearly $30 million globally. The film currently has a projected opening weekend of nearly $43 million, and that's on a budget of only $38 million. Seeing that it made its budget back after just one weekend, it's safe to say that Weapons will be a hit not just critically and with fans, but also at the box office. We are more than halfway through 2025, and I'm fortunate enough to have been able to see my fair share of new releases. Now, very rarely do I go all the way and give a film a 5 out of 5. It's hard for me to put a film on that almost perfect pedestal. So far this year, I've given Bring Her Back and Sinners as the only two films to go all the way with that 5-star rating. But with smooth pacing, relatable characters, just enough laughs, plenty of scares, and a third act that stuck the landing, I have to give my props to Zach Kreger. Amazing writing, top notch direction. Weapons is going to join those two previous films and vault to the top of my list as the best film of 2025 so far, with a 5 out of 5-star rating. All right, guys, have you been able to check out Weapons yet? If so, leave your thoughts in the comments below. If you want to continue this conversation, I'll leave my links for Letterboxd and Twitter X in the description, or you can check me out on my TikTok for shorter form rankings and reviews. But remember, at the end of the day, the most important thing is to keep watching movies.